and gentlemen, hello and welcome
Hello.
to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I am Mr. Warren Hayes, and boy, oh boy, this is the NXT TakeOver War Games prediction show.
Woo!
And and we have enthusiasm abounds here this evening in Warren Hayes' universe, because not only am I joined by my occasional cohort, Lil Hayes, right here,
Hello, everybody.
but we are also joined by CDannyMac from the Undisputed Future podcast. Danny,
Hey guys,
how
how's
you
it
doing?
going? Warren Hayes community, thank you for welcoming me to your YouTube screens again. What is up, Little Hayes? Very nice to meet you, and thank you to this future generation of YouTube and pro wrestling voice, I am sure, for joining us in the next generation and sequel to last year's awesome pay-per-view, NXT TakeOver War Games. And now we got number 2 with 4 huge matches. Warren, we had so much fun talking TakeOver last time. I am so looking forward to this. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you back, Danny. We did have a good time last year. Actually, you know, there's actually a theme here. The reason why Little Hayes is with us tonight is because War Games was her very first wrestling pay-per-view experience.
That is true.
It was the first time that she was exposed not only to NXT but to wrestling in general, and War Games left an impression on you, didn't it?
Yeah, I actually really liked War Games.
Yeah, War Games was fantastic. See, DannyMac, that wasn't your first pay-per-view. You're an old hand at this stuff. You do a podcast entirely dedicated to NXT. Why don't you tell us about it?
That I am. I am the longest running and solely independently produced NXT podcast available. Shout out to everybody else doing NXT coverage, of course. But I've been going since NXT TakeOver Orlando. I've been fortunate enough to cover some incredible matches in the process. And last year's War Games show was very special to me. I got to have one of my childhood best friends, Dave, with me. And I also got to do that particular reaction show from Threshold Studios out in New York City, just outside of Times Square. So very huge opportunities. I've had a lot of fun since that WrestleMania weekend from Orlando, and I decided to just pick up the mic and decide, hey, I'm tired of all the negativity in podcasts. Let's talk a product that all it does is deliver good news, and that is NXT, and I could not be proud or happier to be here. And if anybody out there does know my roots, the match between the Revival and DIY at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2, I wore that shirt last time I was here on the Warren Hayes Show. So quick plug for that last project we did together again. So after that match, I just sat there in the Barclays Center, absolutely speechless. And I just needed more people to talk about it too. I turned to my best friend, Nick, who I was fortunate enough to do the early on part of the show with. And we just decided to start launching this product. Our schedules have changed since then. I decided to keep my own personal brand going. But shout out to you, Nick, if you're out there watching. I couldn't really get this project started without you and your support. And Warren, it brings me here today with another incredible co-host. I am not one for collaboration projects. For anybody of my listeners out there, you know I'm primarily a solo show since that previously mentioned schedule change. So it's always fun to collaborate, especially with a man of a particular talents and personality like yourselves. I can only imagine you're doing a good job raising that into Little Hayes, and all the wrestling enthusiasm is just it's gonna go through the roof here tonight. And I can't wait to start talking some NXT.
Yeah, no doubt, absolutely. And the cool thing is, and that's what's fantastic about what you do, Danny, is that you're super passionate about it. And I mean, you know, we're all fan casts here. You know, we've never worked in the business, you and I. You know, we're schmucks with opinions, essentially. Right. You know, so it has to be. We have to talk about things that make us feel good, that get us pumping, right? And I mean, NXT has that capacity of doing so. Anyway, I'm really glad you're here. I'm also really glad you're here because live as well, because last time you came, I wasn't doing the live streaming stuff yet, and now that's what we're doing. We're live currently on YouTube. We got a bunch of people in chat right now, Danny. We've got JPQ and Jason, who are regulars. Mizzy20, how you doing? Speeds and the Benchmark Show. Is that Chris? Chris actually shouting out to Little Hayes here.
Hey, thank you.
And thank you, Amizi, as well. Guys, thank you very much for being here live. You know the drill, though. If we want more people in the chat, you got to tweet the link out. You got to send it out there on the Facebook. You got to get more people in here. A thumbs up. You know, YouTube likes the thumbs up. Go right ahead and give us a thumbs up. Get us out there so that more and more people will join us. We're here. We're going to do this for about an hour, even though there's only 4 matches, Danny.
4 matches, but lots to talk about. And if you're out there tweeting that link, use the hashtag Team NXT to reach my particular audience. And if you want to, tag at podcast_UF, and I'll be sure to retweet it as soon as I possibly can. And 4 matches, 4 huge implications, miles and miles worth of story. It's a short card, but it is not without substance.
No, that is for sure. Why don't we go right ahead then?
Why don't we go right ahead into a particularly interesting story and a particularly intriguing match on this card. This is what happens when you take lemons and you turn it into lemonade. Of course, I'm talking about the Aleister Black attack that we know now was instigated by one Johnny Gargano, Johnny Wrestling, and I've gone out of my way to drive this point home on my show, Mr. Warren Hayes, that while these allegations and while the investigation was going on, Johnny Gargano was questioned, and he never formally denied a thing. He never said no. The word no never left his mouth. All we really got as a defining moment in that interrogation was "look into my eyes." And little did we know, the eyes of Johnny Gargano were starting to form with some sort of curse or symbiote or something that took over his body and makes him want to pull up his hoodies. I don't know what it is. We're seeing a new, darker side of Johnny Gargano. These past couple weeks, I'm getting so amped up about it. My equipment's falling all over the place.
Everything's coming apart, Danny.
Everything's coming apart. Everything's coming apart just like Johnny Gargano at the seams. So, Warren, why don't you take it away and you give me some of your insight here.
Well,
who do you like in this one?
Well, listen, I mean, like you said, lemons out of lemonade, the worst possible situation, right? You have your main event. You're setting up for a triple threat in Brooklyn. It was Brooklyn,
I was supposed to see it. I was supposed to see that match live. I was looking forward to the extreme good, extreme chaotic neutral, and chaotic evil. And timing is everything. My father gave me a great piece of advice. Timing in life is everything, and it is what it is.
See, listen to what the man said. Timing in life is everything.
I am. Don't worry about it.
Okay. The timing there, in this case, was particularly sucky for Aleister Black to be taken out with an injury. But my goodness, I mean, this is the perfect way to create an angle where not only you keep your current stars active, you create a real buzz around your product, but on top of that, you're keeping Aleister fresh in everyone's heads, despite the fact that he's not going to be there for weeks. You still remember, he's still at the forefront. He's still in a really important angle, and he's still part of the discussion instead of just disappearing for a few weeks. So that, I thought, was a brilliant way to keep him involved. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, and I've said this on my own show numerous times. I was on the Speeds and the Benchmark show just last evening, and I said the exact same thing talking about War Games. The question that I have about Johnny is not as much why, Johnny, why, but how, Johnny? How did you take out Aleister Black, knock him out, and then put him into hospital for weeks? How did he do it? Did he have a sledgehammer? Did he pistol whip him? This is why, and those who follow me on Twitter know I had a very elaborate conspiracy, not theory, that's the word I'm looking for, not conspiracy, but a very elaborate theory that it was Cassius Ohno who took out Aleister Black because it makes sense. He's the knockout artist. And in the weeks before, I was convinced, you know this, Danny, you follow me on Twitter, I was convinced that he was going heel.
I know what you're talking about. I know where you're going.
I was sure he was going heel. And I'll even go as far as to say that Johnny Gargano didn't act alone. I'm not ready to discount Cassius Ohno from this situation because we haven't understood how he pulled it off.
I mean, Aleister Black is a trained martial artist. And from one trained martial artist perspective on this, I have to agree with you on how I don't think it was with bare hands. I don't know how. I like that pistol whip suggestion, actually. I think a pistol whip or like the old school cop tool as a blackjack.
Oh, yeah.
Some sort of slap on the side of the neck.
Something really vintage, you know? Out of a
Maybe
Tom and Jerry cartoon. He dropped an anvil on his head.
I don't know. Maybe the Wile E. Coyote paid a visit to Cleveland and Johnny Gargano was able to get his hands on some very reliable Acme material for once. Who knows how, but like you said, the majority of the question here is why Johnny, why? And he wants to face this Tommaso Ciampa obsession one-on-one all the time. And while that is his biggest demon, he woke up the devil of NXT. He woke up a very scary and dangerous man in Aleister Black, and now he doesn't just have a title to obsess with, but he needs to watch for one of the most dangerous strikers since The Undertaker to enter all of WWE, and I say that with a firm stamp of opinion.
That's and you raise an excellent point here. You know, we haven't talked much since Brooklyn. Well, I mean, we've talked, but I mean, we haven't discussed this in depth. You know,
conspired like we are right now.
Yeah, exactly. One of the problems that I had recently with the way NXT was using Aleister Black was giving him the microphone and letting him cut promos. This is where we discovered, when I say we, I mean where we discovered that Aleister Black has a definite weakness when it comes to delivering dramatic promos. And it's not as much that he expresses himself very clearly. He puts inflections where they're supposed to. He delivers his lines fine. But up until he became NXT champion, he barely ever spoke. The entire basis of his feud with Velveteen Dream was to have him say a word or two words. Say my name. And
2 words, 3 words if you want to throw the Velveteen Dream in there. But
okay, well, but
we're
the
arguing
idea
semantics at this point. It's a great point.
The idea was that Aleister Black had this mystique. He was mysterious, threatening. He was a looming shadow of greatness. But the minute he started cutting his promos, they were so average, and his voice just didn't match the guy. It eroded away at some of his, I would keep using the word mystique, but that's what it is. Now, I felt that they took him off TV. He comes back. He has that amazing interaction with Nikki Cross, you know, the stop, approach thing, where he's the master in control. He's getting it back, Danny. I honestly, I do not want Aleister Black to cut another promo ever again. And I think but that's a whole other story. But this is like you said, this is an important part of the story. We're getting the demon. We're getting the demon of NXT back, the devil, because the demon he's on main roster now. But we're getting the devil of NXT back, and that's really, really important.
Aleister Black being this looming, ominous presence he's a silent killer up until, like you said, that NXT championship. And that's really just how the branding and marketing side of things is. You got to have your champion able to connect vocally with your audience. But you're absolutely right. His body charisma and his actions speak so much louder and so much better than him holding a microphone probably ever could.
Absolutely. 100%. And
there's so much going behind the body language and especially the facial expressions. And we think about how much involvement we got from all sorts of different characters through this investigation. We got Nikki Cross being this huge catalyst. What does Nikki know? We would ask ourselves for weeks at a time. And then we have the most obvious suspect not being the most obvious suspect in a yellow T-shirt wearing Lars Sullivan starting beef with EC3. We got a nice little singles feud out of that for a little bit. That was cool. We got Cassius Ohno, like you mentioned before, asserting himself as that heel presence and wanting to deal with why aren't I a threat?
Son of a
Why
bitch.
don't you think I'm capable of more dangerous things, William Regal?
Yeah.
It's
It,
not
it benefited.
it's
It
not easy
benefited.
to be in that Cassius Ohno shadow right now, especially when he wants to play with NXT's new toy. And fortunately, we will finally see that Bros.
Yes, exactly. But you're right. A lot of people did benefit from it. What do you feel about? How do you feel about Johnny Gargano going heel though?
Johnny Gargano going heel. Uh, it's quite the change. I don't think it's as necessary as a lot of what I've seen being read, but I also believe that Johnny does need that edge. He needs that unpredictable side. You can't always see a guy so determined smiling all the time. Because I've been out there in physical combat competition. You can't keep your head up all the time. You're going to get kicked in the head. It's going to hurt. It's going to suck. Sometimes you're going to snap, and sometimes you're going to want to throw a damn harder punch than you probably should. But unfortunately, Johnny Gargano's harder than necessary punch landed on the wrong man in Aleister Black.
There you go. What do you
So
think?
I think Johnny needed an edge, but let's definitely see where this is going. I like that it's an anti-hero, and this whole dark side of Johnny really reminded me of a Heath Ledger Joker. I might be dating myself with this reference. Warren, I'm sure you've seen The Dark Knight. You definitely got to show Little Hayes if she hasn't seen that movie yet.
What's a
but
Batman?
It's probably my favorite superhero Batman movie of all time. And just the delivery of this sudden psychosis of Johnny Gargano really reminded me of some of the most dramatic and entertaining lines in that movie, and how he's really nailing this character when a lot of people didn't expect him to. That's exactly how I felt going into watching that movie. But let's definitely get Will Hayes' thoughts. I'm sucking wind out here.
No, that's fine, and you're right. I really like the anti-hero thing. I think that it's interesting that in his head he's still the hero, and I still have promises to you, NXT Universe. I'm going to fulfill them. But just as a quick sidebar here, again, last night chatting with the guys at the Speeds and Benchmark show, it's crazy when you think right now in WWE, like just 3 months ago, your three biggest white meat baby faces, Becky Lynch, Daniel Bryan, and Johnny Gargano, are all heels. Like 3 months ago.
Three.
It's crazy.
That's a huge three.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think of Johnny Gargano going heel? Lil Hayes? Make sure you speak into the microphone.
Okay, I wasn't close enough to the mic close enough now.
Yes,
I'm speechless too.
Now say something smart. Make your dad proud.
Well,
Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a good idea that they turn Johnny Gargano into a bad guy?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Well, okay, I'm sorry.
In her defense, though, that's how a lot of people are feeling. I watched that go down. I have such conflicted feelings about it, and going into this match, these are two of my personal NXT favorites. So if that's how you're feeling right now, Lil Hayes, that's something I could totally relate to, and I'm sure a lot of viewers also can.
Well, that's actually pretty much how I'm feeling.
So there you go. That encapsulates it all. What do you think, Danny? Who you got for this match?
Those are your own smart words. Don't.
Who do you got? Who do you got winning here, Danny?
Who do I got winning here? I know the audience is going to win. I know there's going to be a lot of broken hearts and harsh decisions out here, but Johnny Gargano made a very costly decision. I know Johnny Gargano's record at TakeOver is not great, and I sadly feel like it's just going to continue. You messed with the wrong bull, and you're going to get the horns in the form of a black mass across your jaw. And accuracy is everything, and I cannot personally wait to probably see that kick wake up the side of Johnny Gargano that we're used to, or it's going to drive him over the edge.
Right.
So despite how this match turns out, we are seeing a lot more out of the evolution of this Johnny Gargano. No pun intended.
I've got Aleister Black going over as well. I think it's important that he gets a win for his comeback. I think he's on the championship trail after this, so I think it's important that he gets over strong quickly here. Not that he needs to be all that over, but I think he needs the win more than Gargano does. I kind of like the idea of Johnny going deeper into his psychosis. What do you think? Who do you have winning this match, Aleister Black or Johnny Gargano.
First of all, that French accent wasn't that good.
Okay.
It's alright. Second, well, I honestly think there's gonna be an interruption during the match.
Oh, someone's going to interfere?
I don't know who, but I have a feeling that someone's going to try to interfere, and that is gonna leave an opening maybe for Aleister Black. I don't.
Okay. Who do you think might interfere then? Do you have any culprits? Like maybe a Tommaso Ciampa?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
All right. But you have Aleister winning, maybe through some nefarious means.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Nefarious means. Love that phrase.
Nefarious means. If we head on over to chat here, Danny, we have Jason Campbell, who thinks that Johnny is covering up for Candice. How about that? We have some people asking Lil Hayes who she thinks is going to win a couple of matches. We'll get there.
Funny you showed it.
The legendary JAF says heel is temporary. Ripple in the story to get him the title from Ciampa at the Mania Takeover. That'd be interesting. We might see that happen. So yeah, there you go.
Might be fortunate enough to see that live.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. You will, because it's in your neck of the woods. Let's move on to our next match of the evening. And it's one I'm really looking forward to. I'm really excited.
And that is
Shayna Baszler defending her NXT Women's Championship against the Princess of the Pirates, Kairi Sane. I gotta say, Danny.
2 out of 3 falls, Warren.
2 out of 3 falls.
2 out of 3 falls, because these women have not faced each other enough times already.
And I'm glad that they... But this is fantastic. They upped the stakes, right? So this is really good. We got 2 out of 3 falls in a big time match. I have always been a really big proponent of Shayna Baszler, and I found that in the last 8 to 10 months, she has become something special. She was always good, and she was always destined to be really, really good, but she's become something that transcends what I expected. She is phenomenal. Then you got, of course, Kairi Sane, who's a magician in the ring. I'm glad these two are going at it, but you know what I'm most excited about, Danny? I'm most excited about Triple H this week on the conference call, the takeover media call that he does every Wednesday before a takeover. My boy Sean Ross Sapp talked to him. He asked him the question, why are you putting Sean Ross Sapp over at Fightful, by the way, Fightful.com. You should go check that site out.
Fightful.com on that one, yeah.
Why are you putting on 5 matches instead of 4? Tripp says 2 reasons. First reason is we have a War Games match and that requires time. The second reason is that we have Shayna and Kairi doing a 2 out of 3 falls match. That requires time. I'm like, this is the best news, because that's what I was most worried about. You know, WWE are pretty good at, you know, we can't always have 75-minute matches like 2 out of 3 falls matches like Omega and Okada had, for sure. But WWE has this thing of, you know, sometimes cramming these, you know, their falls into 12-minute matches, and you're like, kind of takes the spectacular. It takes away some of the sheen. Now here we have 2 women who are going to have the time to create a fantastic match and tell a great story. I was already excited about this match. Now it's on another level. I don't know what you think, Danny.
I mean, a whole nother world as far as stipulations go. We haven't seen a 2 out of 3 falls match in the women's division of NXT. We've had Iron Woman matches. We've had Last Woman Standing matches, but we haven't had 2 out of 3 falls. And these rivals, these are 2 women with a very extensive history. It goes all the way back to that first Mae Young Classic, the NXT televised match where Shayna was able to pull one over, Kairi Sane winning the title, Evolution, which it was a match I was fortunate enough to see, and unfortunate enough to see, because if anybody out there knows how I feel about Shayna Baszler, it's punch the bully in the face, and that goes out to not just Little Hayes, but all the kids out there on the YouTubes. Punch the bully in the face. They need to learn their lesson. But I want to talk about how much credit you're giving Shayna, because I'm giving her the same thing. I sit here as a fan, and I'm totally jesting when I'm throwing everything out here. But Shayna has improved leaps and bounds, especially from what I anticipated. The cross from mixed martial arts into sports entertainment and becoming this larger than life person, it can't be easy, because if there's anything that I know traditional martial arts teaches you, it's how to be humble, how to be disciplined, and how to be focused. But that discipline and focus can come with a career change. I'm living through it right now, but it can also go from combat sport to combat sport. And Shayna Baszler is becoming this captivating character. She's becoming a person you want to see really get hers, picking on little people like Dakota Kai and just kicking everybody while they're down, putting this intimidation factor in the locker room. It's just pretty much taking all of her mixed martial arts ambitions, and she was told, here, personify everything you've wanted to do to somebody in the octagon and turn it into a personality.
Right.
And she's taken off with it. She's become larger than life in that more realistic fashion, whereas you have the other side of the spectrum in this incredibly appealing a character in Kairi Sane. Pirates are always big with me. Of course, I side on ninjas when it comes to a ninjas versus pirate debate, but I know how popular pirates are. I know how much the retribution from this can come. I know how big calling a championship title her treasure is, but do I see her getting it back? That's really what it comes down to.
Do you have any thoughts on this, Little Hayes, regarding Kairi Sane getting her title back after she lost it at Evolution? Let's not forget, Shayna had some underhanded tactics during that match.
True.
But what do you think?
I would be pretty pleased.
You would be pretty pleased, but do you think that she might be able to pull it off?
I think it would be hard for her.
Yeah, how?
But I think that with enough effort, she can pull it off.
How can you go against that kind of logic? With enough effort, she can pull it off. Kairi, if you're listening, it's so simple. Just put your back into it, lady. You'll do it. It's really that simple. But we touched on it. Just talked about it there. You know, I was really excited at Evolution when Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir got involved, because I had started becoming a proponent of Shayna Baszler and her former and her MMA cohorts but they're all wrestlers now, becoming the undisputed era of the women's division. That was something that I was really, really excited about. So when they got involved in the match at Evolution, I was like, it's coming true, kind of thing. But
we're close. It's kind of like this at this point.
Yeah, exactly. The Queen of Spades.
There's three of them, and then the other one's out here.
Yeah, the other one's up on top.
Yeah.
So that's what I was looking at. And honestly, now they're official. Now they're not just performance center trainees. Now they're characters on NXT. They're officially part of the NXT. They're officially part of NXT canon now. So I can't help but wonder if
they've had success on the live circuit, and it's been a lot of fun to watch and keep up with, and really see another set of women make that transition like they have.
But I mean, even on the live circuit, if it's not on TV, this is WWE. If it's not on TV, it doesn't exist, right? Like even Tony Nese was running from 205 Live. He was running the NXT house show circuit for most of the summer. But, they never really acknowledged that he's part of NXT. He did his match with Johnny Gargano a few weeks ago, about a month ago now.
Seems to be a one-off.
And it's a one-off, right? But anyway, I'm really excited that these ladies are involved. I'm looking forward to this match so hard. And I think, I have some logic behind this. I think Kairi Sane is going to get it back. And the reason I think she's going to get it back is because of what you do with the rest of the division. I feel like the women's division right now outside of Kyrie and Shayna, there are no immediately established championship level talent. Bianca Belair is there. And she's become, here's another woman who's become fantastic within the last year. She's absolutely been killing it. And her character has become amazing.
Better say Lacey Evans.
Well, I have mixed feelings about Lacey Evans. I have mixed feelings about her. I think her character is fantastic. I think her ring work is, but the as far as not Shayna, but Bianca Belair goes, Bianca she's fantastic. She's even been requesting a title match. Now, if Shayna Baszler's a heel and Bianca Belair's a heel, do you put those two in a match? We can't go back to the Kyrie well after this, to the Kyrie Shayna well. It'll be a little too much. So thinking, if I'm booking this stuff, this is what I do. You take the belt off of Shayna, you put it back on Kyrie Sane. You have a program of Kyrie Sane versus Bianca Belair, which everyone will be into. And then what do you do with Shayna? No. You don't send her up on main roster. Keep her around so that she can finish off this beef that she started with Candice LeRae. And then you'll establish Candice LeRae as the superstar, the tough woman that we know she is. Instead of being just Johnny Gargano's wife, you put her in a real program with a badass like Shayna Baszler, excuse me. But yeah, I know. I'm not used to having you around.
If you guys keep cursing, stuff's gonna go down.
If we keep cursing, stuff's gonna go down. Anyway, what do you think, Danny? I think Kyrie's taking it.
That's my first question. Is she accepting American change in the swear jar that I might have to drop some currency into?
We don't have a swear jar.
Then in that case, I'm gonna let it fly. I'm gonna damn myself for having this opinion, but I think it's gonna be an incredible contest. It's of course gonna go one fall a woman. It's gonna come down to the itty gritty, but. And we mentioned this phrase before, and I'm going to use it again because I love it so much. By hook, by crook, by nefarious means, I really think Shayna Baszler's reign is going to continue. This is the first time we've had a two-time NXT Women's Champion. That has to mean something, and having this reinforcement behind her in the form of Marina Shafir, now kind of sort of Marina Strong. Shout out to those two happy kids on their recent wedding, and the lesser known, at least in my opinion, of the four horsewomen in one Jessamine Duke. I feel like we're going to learn a lot about Jessamine Duke in all of this. We know kind of about Marina Shafir from the Who is Roderick Strong segments of the past, but this is going to be an eye-opening opportunity for these ladies. I really think that being Shayna's muscle is going to establish them, like you kind of made that parallel before, as the Undisputed Era of the Women's Championship division. And what did the Undisputed Era do for Adam Cole? They've done a whole lot to hold on to not just the North American Championship at the time, but those NXT tag team titles and securing those victories by any means. And I think that Shayna is going to reach out to her friends to secure that second win no matter what. I think it's going to be by hook, whether that be hooking in the Kirifuda clutch, by crook, sneaking up a crafty pinfall while Kyrie is distracted or pushed off the top rope or something to that effect, or it's just going to be all hell breaking loose, and I think Shayna is going to be able to capitalize on the chaos just a little bit more than Kyrie Sane is. Right. I really don't think Shayna Baszler is going in there blinds. I do think there's a strategy in play with Shafir and Duke. I think Kyrie Sane is going up sooner rather than later. That's also why I have these opinions. But let me just capitalize on that point about Bianca Belair for a second. She is looking like championship material. She is the EST, and she is undefeated, and she is requesting a title match. It's not so absurd to think that she can compete with Shayna Baszler, though.
Well, I'm not saying that she can't compete with Shayna Baszler. Me, it's not that question.
It's if you're booking that stuff and what you want, a good versus evil. But Bianca Belair is getting over as this confident superstar, and she's still getting cheered the way that a conventional babyface might. Bianca Belair has at least 60% of that Full Sail universe on, I'd say, at least the weekly basis we've been seeing her. I hear a lot more EST chants than her opponents, and she's faced off with some really loved superstars, Dakota Kai, for example.
Well, that's it. But she's also been defeating baby faces, clear-cut baby faces. Even her match with Mia Yim.
That's where my gray area in thinking is, whereas her gray area in the reaction segment.
But I understand.
Now, that can go either way, especially if we're talking about Bianca Belair becoming this contender and becoming this great superstar that we're obviously seeing.
But I understand your point, and it does make the most sense for Shayna to go out. It's just I wonder what they're going to be doing with the booking afterwards. Lil Hayes, what do you think? Kairi Sane winning the title, Shayna Baszler hanging on to it. What say ye? Because you were saying earlier, Kairi, if she puts in the effort, she can do it, right?
Right.
So is she going to put in the effort?
She should put in the effort.
So if she puts in the effort, she'll win?
Not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily.
Hey, we got the women out there. Two.
So you're not sure?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure who's going to win?
I'm never sure.
You're never sure. Well, it's not a, who's your gut feeling? Like if you were to pick one. Shayna. All right. That's fair enough. Over in the chat, we're talking about the ladies here. JPQ called it the Kairi Sane having the insane effort elbow. The Queen of Spades, Mizzy20 says the Queen of Spades loses and gets called up. I don't think that's happening just yet, but I think she's way too needed in NXT right now. Jason Campbell says, yes, but age-wise, Shayna needs to be on main roster soon. Yeah, she's going up there, but man, the rings are much more forgiving than they were just a few years ago. Let's not forget, we've got guys on main roster right now who are in their 40s and they're at the prime of their career. AJ Styles is 41 right now. And
I think so. He's in his young 40s, and he still goes. He's the freaking champ who run the camp.
There was a time when a wrestler would turn 35 and he'd be sent out to pasture. Not anymore. The guys have much. The wrestlers have a much longer lifespan now. Hey, look at Minoru Suzuki over in New Japan. Where he's called Murder Grandpa for a reason. Oh, JPQ says, you got Io sitting there. Oh, now there's something I hadn't factored in. Io Shirai.
Sitting there. That's very true. Another
looking out for her friend.
Find herself in the wings of an NXT women's title.
Now here's what's interesting. Then you get like Shayna and her crew maybe having some tag matches with Shayna and Io. They've been pushing the fact that they're friends. This is interesting. Good call, JPQ.
Definitely a good. I want to go back to Mizzy20's point for a second there about Shayna going up. It would not be the first time for an NXT woman to lose her title, go straight up, and then we've seen some people come up sooner than at least the audience feels intended. I mean, who could have seen Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville going up as a team straight like when they should? I thought Mandy had some NXT TV time left in her. Sonya Deville
or Sarah Logan or Liv Morgan.
Sarah Logan going up out of nowhere. Liv Morgan, very popular acts on the live circuit, especially around here. She's a Jersey local. I've been to an Asbury Park show once or twice in my day. But yeah, it definitely would not be the first time we've seen NXT women go up before. We expect them to, but it doesn't mean it's not the right decision to create an interesting story. We got Absolution out of that. We got the Riot Squad, which we all know the talent I feel Ruby Riott is capable of, that she really needs us to reach into. And yeah, lots of things could happen. Anything is possible in that particular experience. But Warren, if we can move on, I want to talk about a particularly eye-opening experience of an NXT Championship matchup. Of course, I'm talking DREAM going against Tommaso Ciampa.
The champ. Ooh.
Oh boy.
It's so just. You ever just see something so many times and you still can't believe it's real? That's Tommaso Ciampa with that NXT title.
Exactly.
I'd say that about the Velveteen Dream too. Every time I see him, I can't believe, that I can't believe that guy exists. He's an avatar. He's pure. He's on another level of existence.
Let's call him a character, because that's really the only way to put him. The man is a character.
What do you think he's gonna have on his tights?
Why aren't I called up already, Vince? Can you fit that?
You know what would be fantastic? You've seen the picture of Tommaso Ciampa back years ago when he was doing when he portrayed I think it was a lawyer on Raw with Triple H.
Some sort of formal business.
A guy in a suit.
Figure. Yeah, he played a guy in a suit.
That'd be fantastic if Dream airbrushed that on his trunks. It'd be the kind of thing that Velveteen Dream would do. Anyway, but it doesn't have any. It has no incidents on the match.
The psychological advantage Velveteen Dream wants to walk in a match having, we've seen from his attire in the past. So something, maybe not that to the T, but something striking about Tommaso Ciampa's past being reflected on the attire of the sartorial superstar is definitely to be expected.
For sure. It's interesting. This match is interesting because it is, in my opinion, the match of the four that has the least amount of gravitas attached to it, but I'm still very much excited to see it just on the strength of these two guys. You know what I mean, Danny?
I do know what you mean. It's really that radical how over they are with the Velveteen Dream's name is being said on a regular basis. He got exactly what he wanted out of his NXT rivalry of the year with Aleister Black. The Dream is over. Dream over is not just a clever segment for saying you're going to lose the match, but it's exactly what the man is. It's exactly what we perceive him as, and he's a larger than life figure, and it's really something to see. Tommaso Ciampa is this larger than life evil that we can't wait to see get vanquished.
No, exactly. That's all we want. We want him to lose. We never wanted him to win in the first place. And we're in the worst possible timeline here. I've heard people talk about Dream and Ciampa have been working house shows together. Apparently, they're being fantastic. They're fantastic together. Apparently, their matches are really, really good. I think we're going to be in for a treat. I think this, like I said, since this is the one that has the least amount of build-up to it between everything else that's on the card, I think this one might, and it's odd to say that it might catch us by surprise because, God damn it, excuse me, it's Velveteen Dream and Tommaso Ciampa. We shouldn't be expecting anything less than something fantastic.
No, definitely not. You look at these two talents. It's exactly who we want to see in an NXT main event picture. And I unfortunately, Warren, I've been so busy with this, that, and the other thing, I haven't gotten a chance to do my review shows. But something I would want to include if I was doing a review show is that the NXT champion not appearing on that go-home show for a takeover, it does hurt sometimes. It can hurt some stories. But if you think about the two men in these stories, I really think that we're going to get our fair share above and beyond storytelling in the ring.
That's exactly.
And I feel like that's going to make up for this lack of gravitas that you're talking about. But I honestly could not agree with you more. It's a point I've kind of wanted to drive home. The champion should be featured on that last show. I know it's War Games. We have to get the emphasis of that important cage match over, but you can't forget about your champion. No. This shouldn't feel like a...
Oh. We lost Danny.
Oh,
wait a second. He's back. There he is. There you go.
Okay. There I am. Whoa.
What happened? Did you drop your phone down the toilet?
No, my phone received the call. I am not sitting on the toilet, fortunately.
That's something it's like.
You might hear
the entire time.
You might hear some extra noises besides my opinion if I were to be doing the show live from the facilities.
This entire time, Dan's in his bathroom. All right.
That was random.
No, that's fine.
Talents. You never see it. You never know I wasn't wearing pants.
Hey,
I'm wearing pants. For the record, I'm wearing pants.
Who wears
YouTube? I'm wearing.
Okay.
Who wears pants?
I'm wearing pants.
Who needs pants?
What is
Velveteen
pants?
Dream needs some creative pants. Getting back to our important part.
Yes,
That's
yes.
where the psychological advantages come in. That's where a big chunk of the storytelling for this match is going to get told in the ring. Two of these guys, they're going to put each other through hell on these house shows just to see what clicks. I have no denying that their chemistry is going to be good. They're two of the biggest talents that we've wanted to see in the NXT main event picture. I think it's going to deliver, and it just sucks that the champion isn't featured on that special go-home show.
For sure.
It's just it's not right in my home.
It's a little weird, and if it's any consolation, they did it to AOP as well on Monday. Your tag team champions weren't on the Survivor Series go-ho show either.
AOP not appearing on main roster TV is something I'm unfortunately used to, and I'm going to give you a fellow thumbs down there also.
But they've been showing up more. That's okay. So who do you got, Danny, on this one? Who do you think is winning?
Who do I
Ciampa
got? Well,
versus Dream.
I like to occasionally give my heart and my head predictions. My heart is with the Velveteen Dream. Fortunate enough to see him get his first takeover victory over Cassius Ohno in Philadelphia. So, I mean, being along with this ride, watching him rise from Patrick Clark, seeing that effort, despite the fact that the Dream has no memory of it, you could tell the man was passionate when he was working in Tough Enough. He's the only man who went out of his way to really personify that true wrestling obsession. And I know how hard he's working. I know what this character means to the NXT universe. I just don't see this NXT title saga with Tommaso Ciampa end unless it's the aforementioned Johnny Gargano. And with that being said, I'm going to bring up our words of the evening in nefarious means. He's not going to do it fairly, but Tommaso Ciampa is walking out of Hollywood with that NXT title still around his shoulder.
I have nothing else to add. That's exactly what's going to happen. No, I do have something else to add. It is true. That's what's going to happen. I mean, I'd even go as far as to say that, like, this is only going to be his second pay-per-view defense of the title. I don't see him losing it. Ciampa retains. What do you think, Lil Hayes, the Velveteen Dream, who is awesome, or Tommaso Ciampa, who is awful?
I still agree with you guys. I think Ciampa's gonna win, but I at least hope that he's gonna get out of the arena and just tell himself, like, here.
Take your time.
I'm sorry, I'm stressed.
There's nothing to be sorry about.
I've never been on a screen before.
The rage for Tommaso Ciampa is real.
Yes.
Yes. Her rage.
If you hope he gets hit by a rental car on his way out of the parking lot, you express that opinion, Lil Hayes.
I hope he at least gets out of there with a bleeding nose.
Oh, there you go. With
Good
a
stuff.
bleeding nose. Kind of like Becky.
Yeah, but less blood.
And
Yeah,
more
less-
painful.
Yeah.
Less carelessness on the other end of what caused her blood, but this isn't a WWE SmackDown podcast.
All right. We got one
Yeah,
more
well,
match.
sure,
We have one more match, Dan.
But it hasn't been an hour yet.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting up on the hour. We got one more match, and it's a doozy. It's a biggin.
Oh my
The
God.
War Games match.
Oh yes.
Ricochet, Pete Dunne, and the War Machine, War Raiders.
Yeah.
I'm still not used to calling them War Raiders. Up against the boys,
Yeah,
the
boys.
lads.
The Dude
Undisputed
Crew.
Era.
Yeah, boys.
Oh, Dan, lead us into this one. I'm sweating already just thinking about what's going to happen.
All right.
Well, I'm sure a lot of this is going to come up, and I want to make this point now. My podcast name is inspired by the first ever NXT champion in Seth Rollins. It is not inspired by the dudes in the Undisputed Era.
I don't believe you.
Don't believe me. It's fine. I've had this isn't the first time I've
This is damage control. That's what you're doing, Dan. Damage control.
that. If you recall, the sold out nickname of Seth Rollins being the Undisputed Future. But let's jump into this matchup with the Era. The Era was not dominant in last year's War Games matchup, but they did walk out with the victory. Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly getting the chance to display their tag team chemistry in that matchup, Adam Cole getting a chance to shine, and even Roderick Strong, despite not being on their team yet, was also involved in the first War Games match, teaming with the strangely aforementioned, didn't think I'd be able to say aforementioned on this show, but the Authors of Pain. We got to talk about them for a couple seconds there. The Authors of Pain teaming with Roderick Strong, unexpected to say the least, but Roderick Strong able to deliver. That's why I'm really leaning towards Undisputed Era in this matchup. They've been through it before. But, and there's always a but, we have the War Raiders, for crying out loud. War is in their name. If these guys aren't going in there with a full head of steam, why bother calling themselves anything with the word war in it, Warren?
Yeah,
Warren. Warren.
Very funny.
Yes, clever. I believe I'm on your side. I'd like the Undisputed Era to win again, and have NXT War Games be their legacy. It's like they're the undisputed champions of NXT War Games, which would be fun.
They've been to war twice and walked out successfully.
Like,
that's
exactly.
That's a really awesome thing to say, and really proves the stable's dominance.
And go ahead.
Let's not forget we're dealing with an actual team here.
That's what I was going to say.
Pete Dunne and Ricochet tension. I'm sure you're going to touch on it, so I'm going to let you cover. And in the off chance that you don't say exactly what was about to come out of my mouth, I'll capitalize on it. But there's a lot of tension on Team War Raiders right now. We saw that as recently in the qualifying match for who was going to fight Kyle O'Reilly.
Exactly. They were all arguing with, well, at least Pete Dunne and Ricochet were arguing with each other. They're fresh off their matches. There's still that situation that isn't entirely resolved, apparently. But on top of all of that, what I think is fantastic is that despite the fact that the War Machine is there, that you have Pete Dunne, who is no slouch himself, the Undisputed Era, they're smaller. They're, they have the perception of being a little more cowardly, a little more what's the word I'm looking for? Wily.
There's nowhere to run in a steel cage.
There you go. And they being who they are, you can set them aside very quickly and be like, well, these guys are going to lose because look at the monsters that are in the ring against them. I personally feel like they're going to come out on top. I think people are going to do some crazy stuff. I would have used another word, but Little Hayes is here.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm fully expecting Ricochet to fly off of everything. And I think honestly, this is his moment. It's his spotlight to take. There you go. It's his spotlight to take from everyone else in this match. Ricochet has everything to gain to really boost his profile in NXT.
Absolutely, and this is going to feel like a very dangerous situation for some, but Ricochet, it can feel like a playground. The aerial master, I feel, is going to fit right at home. He's going to jump off that cage. He's going to jump from several angles from that cage. I am most certain about that. We had an MVP in last year's War Raiders match in War Games match, and it's all going to tie together with the War Raiders, I swear, in Killian Dane.
Mm-hmm.
Dane was the MVP of last year's War Games match, in my opinion.
Fantastic.
Big Man was delivering on the power stuff, on the speed stuff, throwing everybody around. Killian Dane was excellent in that match. And we've seen shades of that same athleticism with Harry Hansen and Reckless Rowe.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen those two guys be able to do some incredible stuff for two big men. And I really feel like, as well as Ricochet, those guys are going to get a real chance to shine on their own in delivering the unexpected. And Pete Dunne is going to be able to use every single rung of those, every single space in the cage to break some fingers in. I feel like a lot of people are losing digits this weekend.
How bad do you think Hansen wants to moonsault off the cage? How bad do you think he wants it?
I think he's I think he's going to have to push as hard with his legs to get that strength to launch himself, as well as he's going to have to really push the NXT brass in order to let him do stuff. Because that's a lot of mass
That's
coming
a
at
lot
a
of
lot
guy.
of speed from a high distance, and I'm not sure if anybody out there is taking physics, but math aside, it ends very badly for the dudes at the bottom.
That'd be I for some reason I feel like it's going to happen. It's going to be a beautiful mess. It's going to be a thrill. What do you think the advantage is? They won the advantage. There was a match to win an advantage. What's the advantage?
Winning the advantage. The advantage is that the War Games matchup, there's no decisions made until all team members have entered.
Right.
So having that extra man to soften up your opponents is going to be very, very key. Now, if the Undisputed Era are thinking how I like to think the NXT Tag Team Champions are thinking, they are going to send the original combination of that NXT Tag Team Championship into the ring first. With Kyle O'Reilly starting the match, Bobby Fish able to come in at a reinforcement role. That way he's right in the middle. He's not the sole focus. And I know he's coming off an injury. I know it's bad probably to have him in this match this early, but if he's able to match his chemistry with Kyle O'Reilly on, unfortunately, who draws first for Team War Raiders, I really feel like it can up the damage done on the other side of the Undisputed Era.
So what you're saying is the advantage would be an extra man to start? Is that what I'm understanding?
It's an earlier man.
Okay.
It's an earlier man. Two men are going to start. Let's say it's Kyle O'Reilly and the aforementioned Hansen. Kyle O'Reilly and Hansen start the matchup, but the next man released from his cage or pod sitting on the entrance ramp there. I don't know how they're going to do it this time around, but let's assume it's a cage again. They get the man locked out of their cage first, and that means a handicap match for that time period. And that's going to spell bad. That might spell some bad news, especially for a smaller superstar like a Pete Dunne or a Ricochet, whose limbs are probably more accessible to damage, like the attack that Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish are so used to. We know the submission style is coming out. We know they're going to try and take out the legs of Ricochet to prevent him from climbing that cage, but we all know it's still going to happen, and it's going to be a beautiful, colorful chaos.
It's going to be wonderful. I can't wait to see it. So you have Undisputed Era coming out on top.
I have Undisputed Era. Kind of got to go with what's similar to my namesake here.
I tried doing it. I have no coordination. I have no idea what to do.
Right hand makes a W. Left hand rocks out.
What's a
and
W?
Then you turn the W sideways.
Is that a what's a W?
W.
There's no W in Undisputed. What are you talking about?
I know. Crush your middle and ring finger.
You do it for me.
Crush your middle and ring finger with your right hand. Turn it over to your left.
Yeah, like that. That's it. Not the
Make
other
your
one.
left hand. Make a rock out symbol, but put your thumb away.
But put it in front of the W.
What? Yeah. Boom. That's how you do.
I did it.
Little Hayes, baby.
Yeah.
Who do you have, Little Hayes, coming out on top of the War Games match? I know you're excited for this one because you liked the War Games so much last year.
Yeah. I also think that the Undisputed Era is going to come on top, but I think that the other team with the War Raiders is going to have, like, they're going to be a pretty good opponents. Like, they're going to be, it's going to be one heck of a match.
Yeah, for sure.
It's
big meaty men slapping around other meaty men. It's going to be a big meaty man slappy match.
What difference do you think is going to create in this war? And I know we went on about the numbers advantage. What about the difference in the number of teams this time around? If back to last year's match, we did have 3 men of 3 as opposed to this 8-on-8 scenario where down a man minus a team, but the amount of talent is still 100%. And it's pretty great that NXT was able to deliver that, but I'm very interested in the change of format.
I'm interested in it as well, and it doesn't bother me as much as other people are. It's not really War Games anymore. It was barely War Games last year. Now it's
Right,
less war games.
now it's just an Renee tag team cage match, and let's find anything to complain about, even if it's NXT.
For sure. For myself, it doesn't really bother me, but I really would have liked 3 teams, and I had my booking all set up. You would have got Undisputed Era on one side, you would have Ricochet and War Raiders on the other side, and you would have had the British Strong Style on the other side.
Right.
That would have been my War Games right there. I would have flipped out.
It's definitely there. The Bad Blood with Mustache Mountain and the Undisputed Era. I really don't think it's just going to go away.
No, absolutely. The Bad Blood is going to stay. But, I just would have... The way that everything was being booked this summer, with Ricochet being at odds with Adam Cole and with Pete Dunne, and Pete Dunne, that triangle, like the 3 figureheads.
Between
War exactly.
Raiders, Mustache Mountain wanted to get their titles back.
Get the titles back, and then the War Raiders were around. I really feel that's where we were going. Then at some point, EC3 got involved. And I was like, oh, what's this monkey wrench? But no.
That was brief. That was brief, and I sadly feel like brief is describing the victories of EC3 lately on NXT television. A man who is not mentioned once again for this takeover weekends, but
he'll probably show up on main soon. What did you want to say?
So it was disappointing.
That there's no 3 teams? Yeah, I was a little disappointed, but it's still going to be fantastic because
it does take away that classic vibe of a War Raiders match. I'm a WCW faithful myself, so I'm definitely used to the classic formats.
Yeah, but it'll still be fantastic anyway. Danny,
it is what it is. It's still going to be beautiful chaos. It's going to be a very colorful match. We're going to see some incredible stuff, and that is Undisputed.
Dan, let's wrap this one up. We went through the matches. I think we're both in agreement this is going to be a fun card.
I think it's going to be a fun card and a fun night for the heels.
Yeah, a fun night for the heels as well. I think the road to WrestleMania is on the way. It trickles down into NXT as well. We're the big stuff is on its way. We're getting we're going to get a clearer picture of how things are. We're going to get a clearer picture on where we're heading as we get closer and closer to April. CDannyMac, Undisputed Future podcast. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
You can find me at CDannyMac at Twitter, and the name that's there on my nameplate is my personal one. Feel free to follow that. But at podcast_UF is the official Twitter of the show. Be sure to follow me. I do live tweet Raw and SmackDown, and of course, spoiler-free zone of NXT. I don't watch or read about the tapings ahead of time. Every weekly content you're getting is a fresh reaction to me. I don't look into the future, despite what my name might suggest. I am 100% there with you guys, watching NXT as live as it possibly can. I'm going to try to adjust my current work schedule. Warren, this is a monumental show for me because I'm able to adjust with this whole commuting craziness to my job and being able to jump back behind the microphone and deliver some NXT talk. So I'm definitely going to try and get on a more consistent schedule. Like I mentioned, did not get the chance to properly build myself for War Games, but the road is still coming up until the takeover before WrestleMania, where we will hopefully see that Johnny Gargano captured the championship. But all my other social media, I do have a Facebook page, Undisputed Future Podcast. Go ahead and give that a like, despite how outdated some of my posts may be. At Undisputed Future Podcast, all one word. You will find the Instagram, and you will see pictures of some wrestling memes I might find interesting. You'll see some pictures of the Velveteen Dog, also known as Colin, who is my Shiba Inu mix, who also Jim Cornette knows about. So the Korean dog meat trade is very bad. There's a rescue organization. If you want any more information on that, you can also feel free to hit me up and reach out to me any way possible. I am available for listening on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Castbox.fm, which I didn't know I was on until you, my friend, fortunately pointed that out to me. And I know I'm available on some of the Alexa podcast apps as well. And just any way you want to listen to the show, any way you could possibly support me, I would appreciate it. And thank you guys for listening to this. I had a blast. I don't get a chance to do much video content. I've never done a live show, so if you're sitting there in the chat room, special shout out to you guys. I've never done this for an audience before, so you're out there making history for the Undisputed Future podcast.
There you go. We always do history here on the Warren Hayes Show. And Lil Hayes, thank you. Where can we find you? At school on Mondays. Thank you very much.
Thanksgiving weekend's coming up soon. Well, at least American Thanksgiving weekend's coming up soon. Never mind.
That's true. That's true. You guys are gonna have some nice time off. Danny, thank you very much for joining me. And you guys know where to find me. tinyurl.com/Mr. Warren Hayes or youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes now. That also works. Or follow me on Twitter at Mr. Warren Hayes. And guys, if you're watching this live, thank you very much for joining us in the chat. That was a lot of fun. And also, don't forget, if you're watching this live tomorrow morning, Saturday, on the 17th, the debut of the Kings of Chat Style, my new podcast project with Wilfred Watches. 2 hosts, 2 guests, 2 topics, debates, discussions, all wrestling related. It's going to be a lot of fun. Danny, thanks again so much for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for coming out here and joining our prediction show tonight. And we'll see you next time.